Our colleague and BBC presenter Komla Dumour was a great champion of young African journalists. Just watching Catherine's work there, I'm sure he would have been very proud of her. Komla, who died suddenly last year, aged just 41, represented a confident, entrepreneurial side of the continent. He was known for his vivid presentation style and storytelling. The BBC World News Komla Dumour Award was launched in his memory. We're going to be talking to the winner in just a moment. But first, let's hear in his words about why he was so passionate about journalism.
Well, I think every day in the newsroom we're confronted with different stories and events from around the world. It could be political developments in America, or social changes in Africa, or a natural event somewhere in Asia. I think the craft really is the ability to tell that story in a compelling and in a powerful way that's not complex, but simplifies it in a way that anybody watching the news can appreciate and understand what is happening around the world.
The wonderful Komla Dumour there. We miss him so much still. Well, let's speak to the winner of this award, Nancy Kachungera, who is in Nairobi for us. She reports and presents for Kenya's KTN television channel, has more than 14 years of journalism experience in Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania. Also here in the studio with me is one of the judges from BBC Africa, Vera Kwakofi. Nancy, well done. Congratulations. What does this award mean to you?
Thank you very much for having me. This award is such a big deal for me. I can't even explain how big a deal it is. But what it means for me really is it's such a huge opportunity to continue, or at least be a part of continuing the legacy of a man I so greatly admired. You know, just hearing his voice just now actually, you know, really did affect me, because I think Komla for me was such a great representation of what Africa is. His positive spirit, he just seemed like such a happy person. And one of the greatest things about being in the BBC office today is just hearing his colleagues talk about him, and it reflects exactly who I thought he was when I watched him on the screen.
Nancy, he truly was that man. He was one of a kind. What are you most looking forward to, though, about coming to London and working with us here?
I think the opportunity to learn, because as a journalist and as someone who's trying to tell stories, I'm always confronted by how much I don't know and just how much better I could do when I tell a story. So I'm really going to be coming and looking for opportunities to learn as much as I can, observe as much as I can, and just really improve my skills so I can just get better at telling stories about the continent that I'm so passionate about.
Vera, just listening to Nancy, I can see why you picked her. She's very impressive. What was it about her, though, that made her stand out?
Incredibly impressive, and the urge to learn, the willing to learn. And once you meet Nancy, which we did from her application and also from interviewing her, you get a sense of somebody who has a clear idea about what the continent is about. And that's what Komla represented, a narrative of what Africa is, what its place is in the world, and that confidence to be able to communicate that desire and that passion. And that we felt was what Nancy brought to her application. And therefore, we're really looking forward to working with her on that.
Just seeing Komla here working, I mean, his passion was infectious, but it was his vibrancy as well, and his curiosity, I think, that was made him so extraordinary.
Absolutely. And in Nancy's interview, well, I don't know if she remembers, but she talked about wanting to be able to tell the different narratives of the continent and the diversity of that continent, being able to represent that. And I think for a lot of people around the world, the continent of Africa has one narrative, and however much you know, people like us try to improve on that diversity of the conversation, it's always the same. And a lot of young Africans are really passionate about being able to tell their stories without intermediaries and being part of that journey of the past, where Africa was, the future of what Africa is going to be, and being able to be at the forefront of guiding the world, as it were, in challenging and in communicating that story. And therefore, people like Nancy represent that for us, and that's what is really exciting. And also, Komla communicated that so well that a lot of people, I think, warmed to that, and we're hoping to continue that with Nancy as well.
Nancy, I'm hoping you can hear Vera singing your praises here, telling the world just how wonderful you are.
Thank you, Vera. I'll be bringing you some Kenyan tea.
Tell us what stories of Africa you are hoping to tell and share.
Well, just as Vera said, that is something that for me is very, very important. I think Africa has been called many things, from the dark continent to the rising continent. And it's been given many labels. But I think it's time that the people of Africa, you know, like she said, without intermediaries, started to define this continent for ourselves. Because whether you're reinforcing a stereotype or challenging it, the fact is at the middle of what you're doing is still a stereotype. So I think it's important that the stories that we begin to tell, and I hope to be a part of this, are just authentic, because an African story should be able to stand as just a story from Africa. It doesn't have to follow a certain narrative or fit into a certain box. It can just be what it is. And that's what I'm hoping for, is that we get to a place where we can define who we are and not just accept categories and definitions that are given. And I think we saw an example of that just a few days ago here in Kenya, where, you know, someone from CNN had to come and apologize because Kenyans rejected a title that they were given as a hotbed of terror. So I think this is definitely, like Vera said, something that young Africans are passionate about, and I'm definitely going to do my best to do my part to be a part of that change.
Nancy, congratulations again. We're looking forward to having you. Can't wait to have you here in London with us.
Thank you.
Vera,
Thank
good
you.
to see you.
Thank you very much.